Greetings to you all. My name is Benjamin Ferencz, and I have been invited to speak to you briefly about the subjects which I hope you're all busy studying. Basically, I'm trying to create a world without war. But let me put myself in your position and ask you to put yourselves in my position. I was a combat soldier in World War II. My assignments toward the end of the war was to go from General Patton's headquarters into the concentration camps as they were being liberated, try to apprehend the criminals and collect evidence of the crimes for the subsequent trials which were to take place in Germany. Those trials have been well publicized. Everyone knows about the International Military Tribunal. Not so many know about the 12 subsequent trials which were conducted by the United States in order to give the public a broader panorama of how it would be possible for a civilized country like Germany to not only tolerate but to initiate and carry out the incredible atrocities which took place under the Nazi regime. My first assignment was to go to Berlin and collect evidence against the suspects in the various fields, doctors who had performed medical experiments, lawyers who had perverted the law, judges who had perverted the law, foreign ministers who had lied about their plans, the SS which had carried out the murders, etc., to collect the evidence, because if we have the defendant or the suspect and no evidence, you have nothing. And if you have the evidence but you haven't got the criminal in captivity, you've also got nothing. So I was to put them together. And one of my researchers came upon a collection of daily reports from the Eastern Front. And it depicted how, over a 2-year period, these special extermination squads, called Einsatzgruppen, because that didn't reveal their real purpose. Einsatz is action, groups is groups. Their instruction was to go behind the German lines as they advanced into Poland and Russia and the Soviet Union and kill without pity or remorse every single man, woman, and child, if they were Jews or Gypsies or possible enemies of the Reich. It was a total annihilation program. We hadn't prepared for that at Nuremberg. And General Telford Taylor, who was my chief, later my law partner, said we can't put on a new trial as I had requested. I rather insisted, we can't let these mass murderers go free. And he said, can you do it in addition to your other responsibilities in charge of the research? I said, of course. And he said, you've got it. And so I became the chief prosecutor of what was certainly the biggest murder trial in human history. I was then 27 years old. It was my first case. True, I had graduated with a scholarship from the Harvard Law School for my exam on criminal law, and I had the experience of a war crimes investigator in action. And so there were very few people in the world, probably none, who had the academic and the field experience. Put yourself in those shoes. My question was, who do I try? We only had 22 seats in the dock, so I couldn't get more. Absolutely ridiculous idea. You try them according to the number of seats available. That's supposed to practice. Who do you select? Well, there were 3,000 men who every day went out and murdered children, and I have to try 22. We had hundreds in captivity. I selected the defendants on the basis of their rank. I think I had 6 or 9 SS generals, and on the basis of their education. I had several who were PhDs. One of them had a double doctorate, Dr. Rush. He was responsible for the Babi Yar massacre, 33,771 Jews killed on 29-30 November 1941. All of these informations, everything I've ever written, is available free on my website, which is my name. So for the serious students who want to know the detail of all of that, I urge you to look at my website. Everything is free. You're free to plagiarize it, use it, whatever way you want. But now you have the defendants selected. What do you ask for? Murdering 1 million people, 22 defendants? People would expect them to ask for all kinds of things. Chop them up into 1 million pieces or something like that, which they probably would have deserved. But I thought, no, it has to have more meaning than the death of these 22 defendants. We have to build something out of this terrible tragedy, because the victims had been murdered because they didn't share the race and the religion and the ideology of their executioners. And I felt this was a horrible thing. In my opening statement, I referred to this being genocide. Genocide was not listed in our statutes as a crime, but I had known Raphael Lemkin as a serious, dedicated, some driven man, and he had been pressing for the word genocide because his family had all been annihilated. And he said, it's not just murder, it's something more than that. And we have to give it a special name. And I used it. And I've been told that was the first use that anyone had made of that in one of the criminal trials. In any event, they were convicted. What do you ask for? Do you ask for the death penalty? As a French newspaper said, je vous demande leur tête. I ask for their heads. I never said that. I thought it was a plea of humanity to law to build the legal system so that this type of activity, this type of atrocious crime could never again be committed and would be deterred, or those responsible would be held to account in a court of law. I succeeded in that. The judgment was a carefully crafted, very long judgment which went into the phony alibis and excuses of the defendants, the most serious of which was presented by Dr. Otto Ohlendorf, Brigadeführer, Brigadier General of the SS, father of 5 children, Dr. Ohlendorf. He explained that he did it in self-defense. I said, how do you get self-defense? Germany attacks Poland, Norway, Holland, Denmark, France. Where's self-defense? He said, we knew that the Russians planned to attack us. Therefore, we had to attack first. And he presented big expert opinions that anticipatory self-defense would be justifiable. It would not be a crime. Well, the American judges on the case, 3 of them, wrote a comprehensive report on that, and they said, what would the world look like? If every time you suspected that one of your neighbors was going to kill you, you can go across the street and kill him first and kill his wife and his children and his grandmother and then burn his house down, what kind of a world would we have? And of course, it's an absurd argument. Unfortunately, and it pains me to say it and to know it, the anticipatory self-defense doctrine has not yet disappeared from the lexicon of legal discussion. The armies of the world, the United States Army, I know, does not preclude the possibility of using that as a defense, for which I, as the representative of the United States, arranged to have Dr. Otto Ohlendorf hanged by the neck for 8 minutes until he was pronounced dead. So we have a work cut out for us for the future as well. How do you build a more peaceful world? And that's what I've been trying to do. I immediately ran into a big stumbling block. The big powers didn't want to give up their power. The United Nations Charter held forth the promise of a more peaceful world where the use of armed force was prohibited, where an international military force was contemplated, where disarmament, universal disarmament, was planned, and it was all to be enforced by the Security Council of the 4 nations which had the power at the time. Well, I'm sorry to say they betrayed their trust. Their primary goal was to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. They have failed in that purpose, and they have failed miserably, as anybody who looks at the day's headlines knows. Why have they failed? Well, it wasn't an easy thing to do. Every country tries to protect its own interests. They still labor under the absurd idea that sovereign states can exist in the modern world. The notion of sovereignty, ending the 30 Years' War, which was accepted several hundred years ago as the guide for nations, is absolutely absurd in today's world. You can't mail a postage stamp. You can't fly in the air. There's nothing you can do. You can't send your email without international rules. So they're still clinging to the notion that they can do whatever they want in their own territory and it's nobody else's business. Well, it is somebody else's business. It's everybody's business. We've got to have a perception of the planet as being one unit in which all the inhabitants are entitled to live in peace and human dignity, regardless of their race or creed. That has been my goal, my objective, in everything that I have done ever since the war. It's a difficult thing, of course, because we have to change the way people think. We have to change the way people feel. We have to reverse traditions which have been glorified for thousands of years. But it can be done, and it is being done. It's hard to see, but it's been a slow awakening of the human conscience. Let me point to a few simple things. Emancipation of women. The United States Constitution, which was a great document, provided that women had no right to vote. Women could not own property. I received an award recently from the Dean of the Harvard Law School, Dean Martimino. The one before me who had received it was Nelson Mandela. Her predecessor was also a woman who now sits on the Supreme Court of the United States. The emancipation of the black man in the United States and in most countries. Not everywhere, unfortunately, yet, but it's moving. You would have a black man president of the United States, winning the Nobel Peace Prize as well. These are things which were inconceivable 10 years ago. The notion that a man can marry a man and a woman can marry a woman, inconceivable. These are ideas which change fundamentally the way people think. And what does it tell you? It tells you it can be done. But you have to begin very early, and it can't be done quickly. You must begin in the kindergarten. And when you teach kids that if you're playing ball and Johnny doesn't want to give you the bat, you don't take it and hit him on the head with it. You reach an agreement, you'll take it and then he'll take it, etc. So we have to learn compassion, we have to learn compromise, we have to learn that war is a horrible thing. War is not something glorious to be celebrated on Memorial Day or the days of victory. It is to be despised and held with contempt because it's a murder machine, and it will increase that way. We now have the capacity to end all life on this planet from cyberspace. What are we waiting for? Waiting for it to happen? We have to go back to the fundamentals. Clear laws prohibiting the illegal use of armed force. Condemn it as a crime against humanity for which the perpetrators are held to account in a court of law. The individual participants in a dispute cannot settle for themselves who is right and who is wrong. They must turn to the rule of law. So lawyers play a vital role in all this. But of course we run up against the political reality that politicians have to get reelected. And they don't get reelected by saying that war is terrible. They get reelected by saying we must support our military. Billions of dollars. As Eisenhower pointed out, President Eisenhower, every dollar spent on armaments is theft from the poor. And it is. And the notion that we can kill an ideology with a gun is absurd. Every time we try to kill somebody who's ready to die and kill for his cause, whether it be religion or nationalism or economic circumstances, you cannot persuade him that he should give it up because you have a better ideology than he has. It won't work that way. We have to change the fundamentals of learning and the fundamentals of behavior among all human beings. Let them behave as humans. The excuse given by the big powers is that we cannot punish aggression because the crime of aggression has not been defined. Well, the Security Council is supposed to determine, according to the Charter, when aggression by a state has occurred. The first General Assembly of the United Nations appointed committees in December 1945 to define aggression, to set up rules and procedures for an international court. That was 70 years ago. Now don't tell me that the hundreds and maybe thousands of lawyers who've been dealing with defining aggression have been unable to agree upon a definition of aggression in 70 years. We can go to the moon, we can go to Mars, we can do all those things, and we can't define aggression? Who are you kidding? They don't define aggression because they don't want to define aggression. They don't want to be bound by it. And stop pretending that it's a legal technicality. Use your common sense. The illegal use of armed force is a crime against humanity, should be condemned as an illegal act because it's in violation of the United Nations Charter. We should also recognize that there are certain principles of universal jurisdiction, which today condemns piracy and torture and rape. Why doesn't it condemn also the killing of thousands of innocent children and innocent people? So we have to change our way of thinking on these fundamentals, and it will be up to you, the lawyers, to bring about the change among the politicians, and if necessary, go to the street. Public opinion will be the ultimate arbiter, which will move in the right direction if the leaders don't do it sooner. And you, as law students, can pave the way. It's the rule of law which is the only way we'll be able to save humanity from itself. So I say to young students like you, the impossible is possible. But I give you 3 pieces of advice. 1, never give up. 2, never give up. 3, you know the answer, never give up. Good luck to you all.